Thank you very much, Doug. Hello again, everyone. And for those who weren't with us earlier when I was speaking with Rachel Learcar, I'm calling in from... unmuted. I'm calling in from Coburg in Melbourne, the land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. Welcome everyone to the session. I'd firstly like to introduce our three panellists. Kate Begley. Hello, Kate.
Hello there.
Ramona Mandy. Welcome, Ramona.
Thank you, Stephen, and good morning, everyone.
And David Woodbridge. Hello, David.
Thanks, Stephen. Good morning, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. So we've got everyone on board. That's good. Before talking about the future, and there will be some aspects of that, particularly towards the end of our conversation, we'd like to lay the foundation so that everyone can be on board. And I'm sure there'll be a lot for everyone present at the session, some little tips and tricks you might pick up or you might have forgotten about, etc. I will begin for the first part of the meeting and for the main part of the session, I should say. We'll have a conversation with the panellists. Then we'll invite comments, humble opinions and others, and questions at that time. And you'll be able to contact the usual advertised way with the SMS message or the raising of your hand. And Naomi is going to look after that for us. Thank you, Naomi. Then we'll have a few closing comments. So let's get started. I'd like firstly to ask each of our panellists to introduce themselves. We might start with you, Ramona Mandy, who people will know through HumanWare, but there's a lot of other things to know about Ramona, which she's going to tell us very briefly. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. I was born and raised in Sydney, and I have an eye condition called aniridia, and that has glaucoma associated with it. I inherited that from my mother. So I've been vision impaired all my life, and technology as a result has been part of my life, because really blindness and low vision, it's an information disability if you think of it that way. I've lost my sight gradually over 25 years, so I've used things like magnifiers, Braille, and just as an aside, I learnt Braille when I was 7, and I was in the prelim conversation with Tim and Julianne, and Julianne referred to using her Perkins Brailler still, and I still do as well. And yes, Tim, Perkins Brailler is considered technology. I went to a blind school for primary, and then I was integrated into a regular high school. I used a cane when I was 15, but I'm primarily a guide dog user now. I moved to Melbourne as an adult, and I've worked in different places. I did a uni degree, which was a double major in linguistics. One of my dream jobs was working at the Royal Victorian Institute for the Blind, teaching Braille to adults, anyone from 20 years old to 90 years old. And in that role, I also taught Braille-related technology. But for the past 22 years, with an exception of a couple of years working at the Australian Federation of Disability Organisations, I've worked with HumanWare, so I've met a lot of blind people, and I did some work. In my role at HumanWare, I've worked in sales, training, and tech support, mainly with Braille and speech-related technologies. So that's me in a nutshell, and I am also coming to you from the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation.
Thank you, Ramona. Kate Begley, who is a policy advisor with the Victorian State Government and spent some time in various roles at Vision Australia before then. Tell us about yourself, Kate.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Yes, so in terms of my eyesight, I was fully sighted until my early 20s when I lost about 80% of my usable vision pretty quickly. From there, due to an eye condition, macular dystrophy, which many of you are probably familiar with. And between now and then, I'm now 46, I've lost a fair bit more of my eyesight, but still have enough to, I don't have a dog or a cane, or I do have an ID cane, but not a long cane. So I use screen reading software, magnification software, lots of lighting, glass magnifiers, and as I said, an ID cane. Yep, I worked in, well, my undergraduate degree before vision loss was in film and television and visual arts, so drawing and painting. So when I was diagnosed, I had to rethink that, went back to university and ended up working at Vision Australia in comms, government relations, policy, and now in the state government doing policy.
Thank you very much, Kate. Back to you shortly. Now, David Woodbridge, Vision Australia's National Advisor on Access Technology, a man who lives a very busy life, and I have the good fortune of chatting to him every week for Talking Tech. David.
Hi, everyone. Interesting enough, my life is very similar to Ramona's in a way. So I started to lose my sight when I was born. So one of these rubella babies that had too much oxygen in the humidity, which started to destroy my retinas. So over a period of time, I had to start learning Braille when I was 7. And then by the time I was 22, I completely lost my sight. So I just get on very glary days. I can notice it's very glary. So I went to a dedicated institute for blind in Sydney. Then I transitioned in year 9 to 12 to a general mainstream high school. Spent 4 years at Sydney Uni, oddly doing social work. And then I spent another 4 years doing crisis, drug and alcohol counselling. And then in about 1990, I actually got asked to apply for the job at then the Royal Blind Society of New South Wales as a technology consultant. And basically, I've actually been there ever since. So I've spent the last 32 years assessing, recommending, installing, training, evaluating technology. I also do as Stephen just said, the Talking Tech podcast. I do my own podcast. I consult and interact with Apple, Amazon, Microsoft. I'm an Apple ambassador for the Asia Pacific region. So I work closely with Apple that I've been for the last 12 years. I've done conferences with Apple basically around the world, but I really get to test and evaluate equipment these days. So I was an adaptive technology consultant for the first 15 years of my professional life at now Vision Australia, and the last 17 years is purely on research and evaluation of tech. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Thanks, David. So everyone, what we want to do is have something for everyone in this session. There will be some talk about what might be around in the medium to long-term future and the near future, but also we want to be of help to people who have been thinking about stepping out into that world of gadgets but haven't quite got there yet. And we want you to understand that it shouldn't be as daunting as it might seem to you. There's a lot that you can achieve quite easily. David, I'll start with you. What is one single tech item that perhaps makes a real difference for you? Something very simple in your complex life at home, because you've got quite a lot of stuff there, I understand.
I knew you were going to say that. I was actually racking my brains this morning going, oh my goodness, what's actually simple in my house? But funnily enough, it's actually my Braille watch, because I can remember the first watch that I got when I really started having to learn Braille back in 1974. And when I was thinking about it, the watch is the most handiest thing. And I know I've got an Apple Watch these days and blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, there is nothing fantastic or more useful than having a Braille watch, because you can just flip it up anytime, check the time. And yes, I've now upgraded from a battery one to a wind-up one. But I just thought as a piece of simple technology, just for telling the time, to seeing how much longer you've got to wait for your wife to come and pick you up, or your children to get out of karate. There's just nothing nicer than be able to sort of like quietly check your Braille watch. So for me, it's the good old Braille watch.
Ramona, what's something that you use that other people may not do, but would find really useful?
Well, when you were asking the question, I was thinking of a couple of things, but as soon as David said his Braille watch, I said, yes, me too, for the same reasons. But, Stephen, I'm sure you're familiar with the expression, it's the best thing since sliced bread. Well,
I have heard that before.
You have? Well, I like to say it's the best thing since audio tactile traffic lights. So, they are a big thing that's made a big difference. For me, if you'll indulge me, it's not really a single item, but I was thinking a single concept would have to be the screen reader. It's made a big difference because I can access information. And a very close second would be a Braille display because it gives me the literacy that I need whilst I'm accessing information.
Mm. Kate, what jumps out at you?
Yes, my glass magnifier, I've got a really small one about the size of a bit bigger than a 50-cent piece, 7 times magnification that I keep in my pocket all the time. And if I lose it, I cannot concentrate on anything else. I'm just very focused until I find it again because it just allows me to move around my house or my workplace or whatever it is I'm doing and, see those little bits of detail that I miss with my particular condition.
Mm. Of course, things that jump out at me are even the talking scales or the talking microwave oven, which Julianne spoke about this morning. Just very simple devices you can have in your home that can make a difference, can't they?
Mm.
So the next thing I'd like to explore with you all is what advice would you give to someone starting out in the tech or gadget world? What questions should they ask themselves? So I think somebody's come off mute there that may not have intended to. So you go first, Ramona.
Okay, one of the things I often advise people in my work at HumanWare is to think about what you want to achieve first, then look at the tool. So really, because a lot of people say, oh, I was told I should get this, or such and such has that, maybe I should get that. And then they think about how they'd apply it. But I'd really strongly encourage people to ask yourself, what are some of your priorities? What do you want to achieve?
Somebody's probably wanting to be muted and they're not at the moment. Sorry, Ramona.
That's okay. And I guess associated with that is I just encourage people to be connected, join things like email discussion lists, listen to podcasts such as David's and other podcasts, because you get an idea of what people are doing, and then that will help you assess, your question of what do I want to achieve, and therefore then go look for the appropriate tool.
Mm. Thanks, Ramona. What are your thoughts, Kate?
I think to get as much advice, expert advice as possible. So go and speak to someone in person if you can, a technology expert at one of the, peak bodies or the service providers for blindness and low vision, and get as much advice as you can from those people, because they know what's available and they do it for a living. So they're really the best people to give you, to point you in the right direction.
Yep. It's important for it not to be turned into an assessment exercise, but more a research exercise for you, but using the resources that are out there in various organisations.
Yeah, good point.
Because we don't want to be assessed all the time.
No, that's
David.
the annoying bit, yeah.
Yeah, look, I tend to agree that research is an absolutely important one. So yes, listen to other people, but at the end of the day, you really need to make up your own mind about what's best for your own needs. And I quite agree from Ramona that you really have to start from what you want and then how the technology fits with your needs, not the other way around. And the other thing too is to go and look at email groups, look at websites, go and look at Microsoft accessibility, Apple accessibility, Google, and so on. Talk to organisations like Vision Australia. So, for example, the AT Help Desk, where you can actually ring up and ask questions about anything to do with assistive technology on all platforms. Go into mainstream shops and have a bit of a chat so you can get the mainstream point of view. So I just find the more information you can gather and the more questions you ask. And the other thing that I always remind people about, remember at the end of the day too, that you need support around you. So if you race off and get a particular item only to find that the rest of your family doesn't actually know anything about it, that makes supporting you a lot more difficult. So you really need to take into account your support base, where you can get training, If you need troubleshooting, where you can get troubleshooting from, all that sort of stuff, you sort of need to take into account, and then you should be fine. And lastly, give yourself plenty of time to get used to using the technology. You're not going to learn everything overnight.
Mm. Yeah, I'll come on to that a bit more in a moment. I'm interested in your point about the, doing the research, go to Google, etc. For some people, they're not there yet. Where do they get? How did they get to the starting stalls?
Well, that's where you ring up Vision Australia, for example, and start to speak to people, or you ask people who are in the know what they, and when I say in the know, as in friends and contacts that may use different types of technology. So, but when I first started out, I rang up then the Royal Blind Society. So I'm talking about 1984, because I got my first job as a social worker and I knew nothing about technology back in those days. So were things like light probes and Apple IIes and that sort of stuff. So I thought, well, if I don't know, who can I ask? And I thought, oh, hello, there's a blind society out there. I'll ring up them and ask them. So that's where I started my whole journey back in 1984.
You got any comments on that, Ramona?
Yeah, look, I think it is about being networked, and also what David was saying about your support network. So if you're in a home that all use Macs, you might want to consider using a Mac rather than a Windows PC. So
yeah.
I think that support network is really good, because everyone's got to start somewhere. So yeah, the more you speak to people and just take your time, then I think it's going to serve you well.
How was it for you, Kate? Because there's a lot of people that have gone down the track that you went down, where you had pretty well normal vision and then went through the loss process over a period of years and had to change your life. How did you come to grips with screen magnification, etc.?
Well, I was lucky enough to have an ophthalmologist that immediately referred me to Vision Australia. And as soon as I as soon as I left the ophthalmologist's office, I pretty much started engaging with Vision Australia and took up every single service that I think was on their books. I was like, I'll do it all, everything. And that's the best thing I ever did, because I got to sort of know every aspect. Like I joined computer groups, I joined peer support groups, I went and visited the AT store. I did Braille. I had an orthoptist come to my house and assess my whole house for lighting, and got a big lighting report written up. All of those sort of things helped me accept that I would be now using magnification and screen reading, and excited me that I would be feeling much more capable in the short term, in the near future, sorry, because I'd been spending quite a few years just stumbling around, getting everything wrong all the time, because I was trying to use live in a without any assisted technology or other gadgets. So yeah, definitely Vision Australia was the turning point for me in terms of learning about tech.
Once you've got the device, and we did touch on it earlier, what techniques do you engage in yourself? What approach do you use to really come to grips with what you need of it? I mean, you can't know everything about your Windows computer or your Mac computer, and nobody does. But a device that you've got, we'll start with you, Ramona. What strategy do you use to come to terms with it and get it into your muscle memory?
Well, I've come to learn that people learn in different ways. Some people, like me, like to sit down and read documentation, and others like to just have a bit of a play, and others just want to see other people doing it, and then they will copy once they observe others. But I would advise, if you are one of those people, and I do encourage people to read the user guides. I know a lot of people cringe and say, oh no, not the user guide. But one of the problems I have seen is people think you have to read it from go to woe. There are some things you have to read from go to woe in order to get the task done, such as a recipe or instructions for a rat, or a letter from your council where you've got to register your dog. Those are things you have to follow from end to end. But with the user guide, I would encourage people just to read the initial chapters, give it a practice, and then focus on other things if you need to, if it's relevant to what you want to do. The other thing I think is a great tip is to learn with a friend or a support worker, because two heads are better than one, and you can remind each other about what you've learnt in the last lesson, for example.
Yes, yeah. Revision helps it sink in, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. David?
Yeah, look, I tend to agree with Ramona, but I take the exact opposite way. I'm a non-manual reader, so I jump in and have a play because I just want to press buttons and twiddle knobs and see what happens. And one of the things that I always say to people is, don't be scared of the device. You actually can't break it, and have a play. So that's my number one, is trial and error is a beautiful thing. You don't have to know everything about the device. And the other big one that I knew I did a lot of back in 2009 when the iPhone came out is that initially, because this is the first time we really got stuck in the touchscreen technology, is you might feel like throwing it out the window within the first 2 weeks, but just be patient with yourself because it will work. And just because other people pick it up a lot faster, you start to doubt your own skill level, and I mustn't be quite understanding this enough, and blah blah blah. So just give yourself plenty of time, relax, and then I'm on occasion forced to go and RTFM, the good old acronym for reading the manual, or you ring up suppliers. So I sometimes ring up Ramona and go, yes, I know I haven't read the manual, Ramona, but can you please tell me the command for the Braille Note Touch or the Brilliant BI20 and so on. So I did that as well. And then back in the 80s, I love those Talk to Me tutorials, they were called back in the day. And that's why when I do my podcasts, I try and take people through a journey, so a bit of a story about how you can get this feature and how it would benefit you. So I love doing the stories about the features and how you can use them. And that way, when you're listening to them, when you've got your iPhone out or your Android phone out or your Braille Note out or whatever else it might be, you can just follow along, and you just feel like there's someone there with you holding your hand, and it's not that scary after all.
Well, that's important, because there are some of us who, it's like Christmas when you get a new device. I want to get stuck into this and explore it. And I'm sure you fall into that camp, David. But then there are others who, I've got an iPad. The kids have given me one. I need to use it so I can see the grandchildren, FaceTime with the grandchildren and do emails and things. But it's all a bit sort of, overwhelming. What ideas have the three of you got? Might start with you, Kate, for how you overcome that, where, you have to go with this stuff, but it's not really because you want to, but you need to.
Yeah, I think just find a good trainer. When I first was diagnosed, I didn't know any other people who were blind or have low vision. So I had no network to fall back on and ask questions. So I used trainers at Vision Australia and was able to what was before iPads. So I didn't get that particular piece of training, but I learned so much from these, experts. And now, all these years later, I do know people, I do have friends who are blind or have low vision. So I'll often ask questions of my friends about, just like what you were saying, David, where you'll call up Ramona and be like, what's this and what's that? So I will do those sorts of things as well, in combination with training if I need some. But it's the trainers really changed my life.
Ramona?
Yeah, two things. I think firstly, tying in with documentation associated with this, even though user documentation is good, I would also advise people, when you're getting some training, don't write extensive notes, because I have seen people will write and note everything down, and then it becomes way too long and it can be overwhelming in itself. And it can be a bit of a problem for people to get into learning because they're overwhelmed. It seems like it's a lot more than it is. So, sometimes I advocate for minimal notes, but I think more important is to understand the concept. So when you're learning a concept of why you do something, that concept probably applies to other parts of the program or the tool. And if you can get an idea from your trainer how why you're doing things. It's not just that you have to do steps 1, 2, 3, 4, but you're doing step 1 because it opens such and such a menu. Step 2 takes you to this. And then if you get the concepts behind the steps, I think that will help your learning as well.
I want to sort of pause and bold and enlarge that one. That is so important, rather than just memorizing a whole lot of steps, but to have a trainer who can communicate to you what the end game is and how we get to it and why we get to it, without getting too involved in theory, etc.
Yeah.
David?
Yeah, look, two of my main things is to do with the family, and also remembering what you've just had a training session about, whether it's with somebody that you're with personally or whether it's going to Vision Australia as a trainer. And that's sometimes to record the lessons, because there's nothing worse than if you're taking notes and you can't remember what you wrote down and what it meant. So I just sometimes say, look, if we're going to spend a whole hour going through some basic gestures of talk back on Android, or we're going to look at how to use the Apple Watch, for example, let's go through the lesson, and then maybe at the end of the lesson, let's spend some time maybe making and recording notes. And then that could be me doing it as the trainer or the person doing it in their own voice. Then they can take it home and that can sort of be their homework to refresh it. And the other one that I stress about is I often will say to talk to the family and say, you have to let this person learn it themselves. Please don't jump in there and say, oh, look, I can see where that button is. Let me just press it for you. Or if you just go two millimeters to the right, or if you just do this and you just do that. And I just say, look, learning if you're blind or low vision is a lot different if you've got sighted and you can pick up the mouse and just click on things. And if you are doing things for your blind or low vision loved one, then explain what you're doing. Just don't go, oh, look, I'll just fix that and bang, 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 or sitting there for 10 minutes in dead silence. So it's communicating and then following along with the person. So you go, okay, so you've just done it for me. Let me find out now how I can actually send a post on Facebook, or let me call Jim on FaceTime and see if I can do it myself. So stand back and be a facilitator, but don't take control over the process for the person that you're giving support to.
Let me put this situation to you all. I listen regularly maybe to a particular FM radio station, and they say, you can hear us now through your smart speaker. Just ask, I'm going to say a lady because I don't want to turn on everybody's ALEXA machine. Right. Someone comes to you and says, what's this smart speaker business all about? How do you get them to be able to make use of that without them having to be a tech whiz? Because you don't have to be for something like that. Have you got any thoughts on that, Kate?
No, because I'm not a user of that. Sorry. So I'm not very helpful.
Okay.
I do understand it's widely used. So I imagine it's really easy. Everyone seems to be doing it.
So David, you help Kate.
Help me.
All right. So like any bit of technology,
you've got 60 seconds, by the way.
All right. Like any bit of technology, you bring it down to what you want to use it for. So one of the main things that everybody does is cooking. So what I tend to use my one for is I'm always setting multiple timers.
Yeah.
So when to take the pasta off boil, when to put the garlic bread in the oven, and you can do these multiple timers, and you can label them. So I've got like a pasta timer, a bread timer, a hot water timer, and all that sort of stuff. So, and I just say, check timers, and it comes back and says, oh, you've got 10 seconds on your hot water timer, you've got 3 minutes on that one, and then they just go off and you can just say stop. So again, it's always to do with the task that you want to use it for. So don't worry about the lights and the garage doors. If it's the main thing you want to do is, and that's cook and time your cooking stuff, then that's all you use it for.
Yeah.
Really straightforward.
Thanks, David. I just want to get an indication from you, Naomi. Have we got any traffic coming in yet? People interested in contributing? I've got one more question I want to ask, and then we could go over to discussion for a while.
Yeah, thanks so much. We do have one up. No, you open the floodgates. We now have 3 hands raised. So
okay,
feel free to continue, and then we can go to questions.
Yeah, well, okay. So the next area is about the future. And I'll go to you for this, David. What are you looking to, what are we going to be talking about in the next year or so, 3 to 5 and 10 years time? Just very briefly, we didn't know about smart speakers 8 years ago, and a lot of us use it.
I think the big thing coming on the market now is we're sort of moving from what's traditionally been known as virtual reality into augmentative reality. So what augmentative reality does, it's an overlay over the top of what's going on in the quote real environment. So for example, we can sort of think about the beginning parts of that as things like the Envision smart glasses, the Iris Visions, the ARX Vision headset, and so on. So, I can imagine, if we ever end up with these Apple glasses, maybe the next couple of years, that's going to be an overlay. So for example, when I'm walking past the building, it's not only going to tell me that it's, Vision Australia, it's also going to say, and by the way, did you know Vision Australia has a lovely dog guide spot where you can take and relieve your guide dog. Here's the phone number. Here's the help desk number, blah, blah, blah. Or if I'm at a railway station, it'll just say the train now pulling into, because I can see the train pulling in via my camera, then that's the train that you need to take into the city. So for me, over the next 3 years, it's all the augmentative reality stuff. And then I guess going beyond that is into infrastructure. So we always know at the moment that touchscreens are a huge barrier to infrastructure, participation, gaining information, making self-bookings when you go to the airport. So for me, if we transition into, voice control, or you can decide what your mode of access is it braille, is it large print, is it speech, is it signing, depending on what your modality is of communication, then that's what it'll be. And that's what I'm really looking forward to in the next 10 years, where it doesn't matter what your disability is, the infrastructure will automatically adjust and fit what you need to access.
Yeah. Ramona? What are you anticipating, or what are you dreaming of?
I think we'll see a lot more artificial intelligence on devices. We're already seeing that in apps and technology related to navigation. Remember, I said it's an information disability we have. So that's about information to text, but also the environment. So we're seeing things like door detection, and I think we'll see a lot more artificial intelligence deployed in many, many areas. I think we'll also see, and we are already seeing, multi-line braille displays, being able to show graphics and multi-line braille. Those costs will come down as braille technology improves. And I think another one we'll see, I'm not sure about 10 years, but these are some of my things that I'm thinking we'll see over the 3 to 5 years, a lot more haptic technology. That's, vibrations. I was just reading an email today about, I think it's Microsoft that have released a tablet where you'll be able to feel the ball as you're watching a sports game, and feel the movement in real time on this tablet. And that's the one I'm very excited about, not because I follow sport, but I can see a lot of other applications like learning dance moves and many other sort of things. So I think there's some of the areas I see emerging technology in.
Yeah, there is interesting research and development going on, and it'll probably be with us sooner than we anticipate. Have you got any thoughts on this, Kate?
Not as creative as David and Ramona. I particularly like what David mentioned around touch screens and being able to perhaps use a voice function in the future. That would be very exciting. I think driverless cars is something I'm looking forward to. I don't know if which bracket of time that fits into, Stephen.
I don't think anybody knows, really. It's been talked about for a long time, and it's getting closer.
Yeah.
But it's a bit like the dying frog, he might get halfway there, and the next time he gets halfway there, but will he ever get to the water?
Can I just say, Stephen, I want my Night Industries 2000, as in KIT, back from the 80s TV show. I want a KIT present self-driving car.
You never look forward, do you, David? Not at all. Not hard.
That's not too much
Naomi,
to ask.
Perhaps if you can tell us, who's wanting to make a contribution, ask a question or a comment.
Thanks, Stephen. Our first question or comment comes from Tiffy, if you'd like to unmute.
Now,
yes,
we're going to have, sorry, Tiffy, I just want to say before we start, if people can keep their comments fairly brief, because I think we're going to have quite a few, and we do need to come back for
Yeah.
a few minutes just before the end. Over to you, Tiffy.
Thank you, Dylan. Now, Dave, there's this annoying bug that has come up on a few updates. I've got the latest iOS 15 one. I haven't upgraded to 16, but every time you try to do a space, it doesn't want to insert it. You've sort of got to force it. Is there a way that you can find out what's going on with these bugs and how the hell are we going to get rid of them? It's annoying as hell.
When you say space, what space in what context?
Like if you're spacing after a word, like if I'm saying, hi, Dave, space, how are you, space?
Yeah.
But the space will often not come up. Like it would just, I can't explain it, but a lot of other BCA members have noticed it.
Okay, but is this voice dictation or when you're typing on the keyboard?
Well, not with dictation, but sometimes I've got to manually put a word in if dictation doesn't do it properly.
Mm-hmm.
This only came up in, I think it was iOS 15.5 something. I can't remember exactly which update it started in.
Can I
but
suggest,
Martin has already reported it.
Well, look,
can I
that's right.
suggest, Tiffy, that we take this conversation offline, but David, if you could make a broader point about how people should respond when they find something's not working.
Yeah,
properly,
look,
okay?
there's a couple of reasons. I mean, you can contact the AT Help Desk at Vision Australia. I always email Apple Accessibility. But look, the other thing I warn people about is don't expect these things are going to be fixed overnight. I've got an existing bug on the Apple Watch that's been irritating me for the last 3 upgrades, and they keep assuring me they're going to fix it. So the key point, what I tend to say to people is find another way around the stuff, which I mainly do all the time. But look, I'll have a chat to Apple and see what they can suggest.
Yeah, and
thanks,
if you two are able to make contact during the week or something, or through the help desk. But thank you, Tiffy. That's I'm sure that's a point where there's other instances of it for lots of people. Yeah, Naomi.
Thanks, Stephen. Our next question or comment comes from Christy.
Welcome, Christy.
Hello, I'm just making a brief comment. I use the talking microwave every day. It's something that I've always used since I bought it. I'm not the only one that uses it here. I've actually shown other people who are sighted about it as well.
And you obviously find it, even though
very accessible.
Yeah,
yes.
Very easy to use. You don't have to be a tech whiz to use it.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
That is good.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And there's lots of stuff that like that around. Sometimes we just don't think of it.
Although it's very funny.
Right.
Although it's very funny, Stephen, the original one that I had back about a long time ago, it had a record and a play button. So my children could actually leave me messages on it. So that I would record a message saying, it's Dad, I've just popped out for a walk. And then all they would do is just press play, or vice versa if my children left me a message. And I just thought, why doesn't the Vision Australia one have a record and play button? Because it would have been so cool for my teenagers to tell me where they've actually nicked off to. So there you go.
Yeah.
I'm never satisfied, Stephen.
Good on you, David. Naomi?
Our next question comes from Angela.
Right, thank you. And do we have others as well, just so I know?
There are 2 after Angela.
Good on you, thank you.
Thanks, Naomi. So yeah, Angela from BCA reading a couple of questions that have come in through the BCA inbox. So one from Susan Thompson. How do you know what you want to do when you don't know what might be possible? When you're used to living without being able to do a number of things, or you didn't know that others could do something. And then perhaps in a related question from Erica, just asking, I think it was David who mentioned getting onto email lists and websites as part of researching and learning what tech is out there. And do you have any recommendations for your favourite email lists and websites?
Okay, I'll go to Ramona first, and then David or Kate might like to add as well.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Susan, for the question. I think just in terms of what you want to do, we all have different life stages. So most people either want to work or study, or they want to look after their health better. So there'll be big picture things. So by talking to others, you can see whether you can do those things. Some people make the assumption, oh, now that I've lost my sight, I can't work, which is not true. But so by networking with people, it will become apparent that you can do those things. Also, joining peer support groups such as gardening might put you in contact with friends, and you make friends and you learn that they do something else. So it doesn't always have to be a technology related thing to help you become aware that there are things you can do, and that gets you thinking of what you want to do. Just in terms of some resources, I also want to give a shout out to Adam Morris, who runs a number of email discussion lists to do with technology, whether it's an iOS specific one or a general adaptive technology one. So there's a lot of good discussion there. Some of it's high tech, you may not understand, but those people on those lists are usually very kind and will respect any question, no matter how simple it is, and help you out with the information you need.
Kate, did you want to add to that, or David?
You go, David.
My main one is talk to the organisation that fits in with your life stage. So ring up Vision Australia and have a talk to them. Or if you want to have a talk about a guide dog, then you can talk to Seeing Eye Dogs or Guide Dogs. If you want to talk about sports, then you can ring up different sports and sport organisations. So again, you've actually got to start somewhere. So I normally, for example, I've spent the last 30, I originally did judo when I first was back at school with a bit of vision, and I spent the last 30 years watching all my children get to black belt, and I just assumed that I couldn't do it. And about 3 months ago, our local karate school decided to run what they call Grand Masters, which is another way of saying over 50. And I started doing it, and I'm just about to transfer to my green belt. So I've now done 3 belts. And it was just amazing because I just assumed I couldn't do it. And with support from my family, from the dojo, it's just amazing. So again, don't assume that you can't do something. With support and with information and people around you, then it's amazing what you can do. So don't limit yourself by thinking that you can't do something.
And if you're going to have a disagreement with David, keep your distance.
No,
Thanks,
we're all
David.
good. All right.
Very good. Okay, did you want to add, Kate, or we move on to the next?
I agree with David around, contacting the service providers of whatever it is you're thinking you might be interested in, and also trying to expand your network among the blindness and low vision community as much as you can through, any sort of group or peer support activity, or just regular old socializing with, people within the blindness and low vision community is very helpful to direct your efforts.
Thank you. Angela, did you have another text or email?
Oh, it was just whether there were any recommendations for any specific groups, websites or email lists.
There's so many. It's really about talking to people, isn't it? It's hard in this situation to recommend a particular email list,
although
we'll leave out one.
Yeah, look, I would say, some of the stuff that's very easy, like say for Apple stuff in particular, I always recommend go to AppleVis. Now it's a main website and they use Twitter and so on, but that really covers
So let's spell that, David. AppleVis.
APP. You know what, Steve? I feel like we're on Talking Tech. Do I really have to spell it? All right, Apple and then Viz as in vision. So it's appleviz.com. That's a really good one. And there's another one that's sort of been emerging for Android, because poor old Android gets a bit left behind for blind and low vision. And I can't remember the exact name of it, but it's something like Android, Blind Android or something like that. So what I might do, Stephen or Naomi, I'll find out the actual website and I'll email it to you, because that's getting very, very good. They've also got a really good podcast, and they're up to about 70 or 80 podcasts, the same as AppleVis do podcasts all the time. So do this Blind Android group, and it's actually very interesting. And then as far as other websites, you'll find that the websites now for Microsoft, Apple, Amazon, and Google are actually very well structured, particularly the Windows one, because you think, oh, what's that shortcut for Office 365 in Word? And you can very quickly narrow it down and find exactly what you want. So that's actually another really good resource. So I recommend highly the accessibility websites for all those major organizations, and then Apple Viz. And like I said, I'll find out the blind Android one for you as well.
Yeah, so what we'll
Stephen?
do, we'll do a bit of work and get a list together and use BCA's infrastructure, communications infrastructure, to get that around to people in some way.
Could I just add a couple of others, Stephen?
Yeah.
I have seen a lot of books from National Braille Press. You can buy those in electronic format or
They're
hard
great,
copy
aren't they?
format. And they're great for whether you're a beginner, you're dipping your toe into a technology for the first time, or power users.
Absolutely.
The other one that's a really good source is the Mystic Access tutorials. They're audio and they're in DAISY format, and they cater for all levels of user as well.
Great sources from the United States.
Mm.
Now, time is ticking. I think there were 2 more people had their hands up, or is there more now, Naomi? But I think we might be only able to take about 2 more.
Sure, there's 3 hands raised. The first is Scott Erickson.
Over to you, Scott.
How you going, guys? Yeah, look, I want some comments. Actually, by the way, David, I had a bit of a Google search while you were talking. I think it's blindandroidusers.com, but don't quote me. That could be the podcast you're talking about. I'm wondering what you guys think of some of these new, sort of where we're heading with some of these new features. Like I'm seeing, for example, iOS 16 has door detection, and people detection came out last year. So and of course it's a mainstream device. So I'm wondering, I know what I think, but I'm wondering what you guys think in terms of where we're heading with all that kind of thing. Do you think it's something that will, I guess, take off as more as we get more into things like the glasses? Well, Apple's rumored glasses, but they've been rumored for a while.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Yeah. David, can you just touch on that one for us?
Look, I think the difference between mainstream and assistive tech is getting tighter and tighter, and it's my hope that eventually there will be no differentiation between mainstream and assistive tech, except for those very specific things that, maybe not being able to merge. I mean, who knows? We might actually have a pop-up braille display in a touchscreen at some stage in the future. So, where sort of hardware is concerned, there may be a few little hardware things hanging around. But as far as software is concerned, so things like the door detection, people detection, object detection. That's what I was talking about before with augmented reality. Because the cameras are getting better, we've got higher resolutions and everything else, the amount of information that we'll be able to get, and this goes back to Ramona's comment about where, blind low vision, raw about information, there is just an staggering amount of information, and that's where you need artificial intelligence to start filtering out and just giving you the stuff that you need to know about whatever situation you might be in.
Thanks, David. Now, we've only got about 3 minutes left for this discussion, so we'll see if we can get to the 2 people who had their hands up.
Next question comes from Kathy Horner.
Welcome, Kathy.
Thanks. Thank you, Stephen. Can you hear me?
Yes, sure can.
Yep. I wanted to ask about the application for dance moves. I've joined a choir, but I wondered when you get it, that through Windows or something like that.
I think Kathy might be referring to what I was talking about with haptic technology, Stephen.
Yes.
So I was just saying there's not actually an application at the moment. There is a tablet that offers haptic feedback where you can feel the ball moving around in a football match. But I was saying I could see this being used in more broader applications as time goes on, when developers get their hands on such technology.
But not at that stage yet. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy.
That's all right.
Next one.
Joanne did have a hand up, but the hand was lowered. So I just wanted to check if it was lowered by accident or whether Joanne changed her mind about the question.
Yeah.
Hi Naomi and hi all the panels, Stephen. Actually, no, I was thinking like we don't have time, that's why I lowered my hand. Actually, it was just a very quick comment. I have been traveling quite a lot overseas for the last few years, and some of the voice command items, especially household items, really available overseas from Korea and China. Not those big brands that you probably would be expected, but you will probably now you can pretty much get like a voice command, a vacuum cleaner, especially in the water filtration. You know, you can get like if you want to say 60 degrees Celsius, then pop you go. So it's already, it's not far away. It's what I'm trying to say. Thank you.
Good on you. Thanks for that, Joanne. Okay, well, we'll have to leave the questions and comments there, but thank you. They've been all very good and very helpful and given us a bit of work to do, like compiling those lists, etc. Just one final question for each of the panel. Start with you, Kate. What is one single message that you would like each person participating today to take away? What's one single message out of this session that you'd have for them?
To not wait when it comes to technology. Don't think to yourself, oh, I'm not quite blind enough for that yet, or I don't need to, I'm probably okay with what I've got. I'm struggling by or managing. I think the sooner you can get onto tech and access all of the freedom and information more freely and all the benefits that comes with that, the better. So yeah. Act quickly.
Because there's always another one on the horizon, isn't there?
Yeah.
Good, very good point. David?
My one is always to be curious and actually ask questions. So if you're not sure about something, ask. If you feel like you've got a stupid question, it's not, because there's nothing such as a stupid question. So because the more information you can gather, then the better your decision making is. So my thing is ask as many people as you like, within reason. Because if you ask 100,000 people, it's like having too many cooks. You can't even get anything done. But look, a bit of common sense, but always ask. If you're not sure, ask. And like I said, people are more than happy to answer your question. And if people don't know, like I often don't know, I'll always go and find out for you.
Good, thank you. So far we've got don't wait. We've got be curious. Ramona?
I would encourage people not to compare themselves with others, but to compare yourself with yourself. And what I mean by that is, you may never be the Apple guru that David is. You may never be able to read Braille fast enough to efficiently take notes in a fast-paced meeting. But if you can look at what you've achieved and ask yourself, what can I do now that I couldn't do a year ago? What can I do with my technology that I couldn't a month ago? And just recognize your progression and let that give you the confidence to keep moving on and learning.
Don't compare yourself with others. So they're the 3 points. Don't wait, be curious, and don't compare yourself with others. Terrific. Thank you very much to the three of you. Thank you to the organisers of the event to allow us to have some time on the stage. And it's been a pleasure working with Kate Begley, Ramona Mandy, and David Woodbridge. So thanks to you all. Did anybody of the panel want to make a quick comment?
No, just to say thank you for having us.
Yes, the same here. Thank you so much. Great to work with you again, Stephen. And
thanks for listening, and I look forward to listening to you on Monday, Stephen.
Good on you. Thanks very much, everyone. Over to you, Doug.